there is somebody buying and there's somebody selling. If you just strip yourself up into from all those things, okay, which you've been told that there is a technical indicator and this indicator is important and this is going to predict the future, and if this goes to this level, the market bounces and this and that. That indicator itself, okay, was based, okay, on demand and supply. And that it says over there, right? It's oversold. What does it mean? Okay, that there was a lot more, okay, supply coming in, or overbought. What does it mean? Okay, that means, okay, there was too much demand over there, right? So everything is still based on demand and supply. What we are asking you to do is take the focus away from understanding the market in terms of indicators and start looking at it in terms of demand and supply. And once, okay, you get to that kind of an equation where you're looking at the market in terms of where demand is higher, where supply is higher, okay, you will be at a much more better position to understand how it is, right? So just to quickly sum up, okay, where we are right now.
The market order helps move price faster. Now, why do I say that? Okay, because the market order adds momentum to the existing demand and supply already there. It helps move price further up away. And generally speaking, okay, when we talk in terms of market orders, we get to know, okay, that these traders who put markets are generally, and I'm saying generally speaking over here, are generally the kind of people who know what they are doing. They are not, okay, people randomly trading, and they are armed with a certain set of information which tells them that, okay, I want to get into this market now and I want to get into this market quickly. And because of that, okay, we say that's why, okay, we focus on traded quantities, because traded quantities tell us who is a player who's on the winning side and therefore will keep his position, and who is a player who's on the losing side and therefore he's in distress, or what we call upside down in our markets, and therefore he will close his position, fueling a further move into the market, right? Now, I just want to elaborate over here a certain fundamental point. The order flow chart is not just based on pure buying and pure selling. Price does not move just because 100 people came and bought. Price also moves because there is short covering, right? Price moves up when there is short covering. Price also moves when there is long liquidation. That means, okay, longs are booking profits in the market. Price can come down.
Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Good evening, all. Welcome to this Monday 5 p.m. session. And as we have started a new month from today, the month of September, let's start with doing a quick review of what we have done in spot in August. And then we will have a review of the weekly spot chart. And then we'll come on to what we have done today in the futures and the order flow, and then the option market. So before I start, a quick reminder that starting this week, the Nifty settlement is going to be on Tuesdays. So tomorrow is the weekly settlement. So it becomes all the more important for us to follow the new tools which we have at the VTrender chart section. So I'll have a quick run through what are the combinations we can have on settlement days, especially to see what the option inventory is doing. So let's now start with the monthly report. So what we have done in Nifty Spot in the month of August, is formed a neutral extreme profile to the downside. And you can see the monthly chart on screen, which is split into the daily. So what we did in August was, on the very first day, we had this as our reference when we started August. In fact, even in the session which we had when the month started, we had spoken about how the 24796 will be an important reference. And right there on the 1st of August, we got a failed auction and we got a neutral extreme profile to the downside. So it was indicating that the buyers have failed and the sellers are taking over. And this came at a very important reference which we had already marked. So going forward in the month of August, the buyers remained to the downside in the first half, where we made these new lows. But what we did was 3 consecutive days, we formed similar lows. And this was near the monthly HVN from May, which was at 24389. So what we were seeing here was some kind of demand which was coming in, and supply was not able to break through this. So from here we made a small bounce back, and this was more a balance, composite balance, with a failed auction at the start of the month. So it was not at all a bullish sign. But what happened in the second half was, after the holiday of 15th August, which was also end of the week, we opened with this gap up, and this changed the character of the auction, which was looking like a B-shaped profile till then. Suddenly saw the auction giving new highs with a gap up, and this was right at the rollover point, which was at 24860. So because this remained above the rollover point, we saw a small short covering move higher for the entire week from 18th to 21st of August. And why we know it was short covering? Because in Nifty futures, the open interest kept on reducing as we were climbing higher. So this is what was telling us it was more a short covering, and you can see the range also were small ones. It was not a big range moves which we were having on the daily. So what we did on the 21st was, we made a very narrow range profile, but we tested that series VWAP, which was at 25142. And because the July month was a double distribution, one to the downside, the VWAP was an important reference for the sellers to hold. And right there we saw a queue of rejection. And you can see how that rejection triggered this initiative selling tail on 22nd. And from there, once we got the initiative sellers in, they drove it lower for the rest of the month. And then we had a neutral extreme profile to the downside. Although we did not make new lows into the close, we tagged this POC of 24408 and closed right around it. So what was the important references we had to take forward for this month? So if we So in the brief for this month, we know that it's a neutral extreme profile to the downside, completely lower value. The value is completely lower. And we got support at the monthly HVN of 24389, which will be the immediate support even for this month. You can see how we have made similar lows on the monthly. And we have a small responsive selling tail right at this VWAP from July. So this month's VWAP is at 24718. This will be one important reference because it's a neutral extreme profile. The VWAP will hold important regard, and the POC is at 24624. So what we have the series VWAP as our reference, and we have the rollover point at 24650. So these would be the references which we will take forward. And where do we have them? We have them in this monthly zones. We have them in the monthly zones. The rollover point is a 24650. The series VWAP 24718 and the POC is a 24624. So these will be the important levels which we will mark and uh, note for the entire month of September. So coming to the Bank Nifty monthly, Bank Nifty also was a neutral extreme profile to the downside. And you can see what we did in Bank Nifty also was a seaside extension higher which failed. And then it was a neutral extreme which made a probe lower in the first half of August. Similar to what we saw in Nifty, you can see how this zone was protected. And this zone was very close to that 55019, which was the May series VWAP. It was a neutral extreme profile to the upside, the month of May 2025. And we had the VWAP of that reference marked. So that was holding. That is where we took support in the first half of August. And then we got this gap up. And what did the gap up do? It stalled right at that rollover point of 56170. We needed to be above this to be bullish. But what we did was we stalled right there. And there you can see we have got poor highs. And from there we formed this 4-day balance with a prominent POC at 55780. And just like what we saw in Nifty, from 22nd, we saw this initiative selling coming in. And this initiative selling, it was even more, Bank Nifty was even more weaker of both compared to both because it broke these lows with an extension handle. And when you're getting an extension handle at an important reference, you know that there is more imbalance to come in that direction. So what we have done on the monthly is that we have left a failed auction. We have a rare monthly failed auction at 56156. And then most of the month was a balance. Even in July, we saw this. We were forming a Gaussian curve for most part of the month, but into the close, we made a move away from that balance. And we dropped by more than 1,000 points from the value area low of the balance. Similar thing happened in the month of August. You can see how this was taken out in the last few sessions, and we left an extension handle here at 54905, and we left another extension handle at 54396, and then we went on to make lows of 53606. So what we have done is formed a ideal neutral extreme profile, and we have a big neutral extreme zone from 54905 to 53606. So we have a almost 1300 point range over there. So that will be the neutral extreme zone on watch for the month of September. If we get back above this, then we have a chance of 80% rule in this value. Else we will remain weak if we break below these lows. And what are the monthly zones to watch out for? And what are the objectives which we are looking at? So you can see how we have the rollover point at 54260. It is completely lower value for this month. We have three extension handle. 54905 is the first one, 54396 is the second, and 53768 was the closing extension handle, which has now been negated because we have got above that today. So, and we have the series VWAP at 55171 again because it's a neutral extreme profile to the downside. The series VWAP will be an important reference. So that is those are the monthly references. And what are the probable targets which we are looking at? If we remain lower, this extension handle from April 53164 would be our first objective, and then we have the series VWAP. April was a big month in Bank Nifty. It gave an extension handle on the yearly time frame also. 2025 has an extension handle in the month of April, which from where Bank Nifty jumped from below 52,000 to the highs it made at 57,628. So that will be, we have come back into that zone and we are very close to testing that. So that series VWAP of 52845 would be the first reference, which is also coinciding with the 180R target from this failed auction, which we have left, the monthly failed auction. And this is that extension handle which I was talking about, 52064. So these are the important downside references for the month of September, which we will be watching in case we move lower. So what are the important reference of 54260 is the rollover point, and the neutral extreme VWAP and the POC are clubbed together at 55171 and 55131 respectively. So why are they clubbed together? Because most of the month we were forming a balance, which is why both the POC and the VWAP are together. But we have made a big move away, and these are the extension handles. The 2-1 remain because this is negated today, so this is no longer an extension handle. But 54396, which was coinciding with the yearly VWAP when it broke in Bank Nifty spot, will be one important reference on the upside. And then we have that 54905. So let's now move on to the weekly spot chart. And see what we have done last weekend. Also have a quick view of what we are doing today, what we have done today. So we have the weekly spot chart on screen right now. So what have we done in the Nifty spot weekly spot weekly time frame is again a neutral extreme to the downside. In fact, Nifty had that rare occurrence where the last day, the last week, and the last month, all three had closed as neutral extreme to the downside. The monthly profile of August was a neutral extreme profile to the downside. The weekly profile of last week was a neutral extreme to the downside, and Friday close again was a neutral extreme to the downside. So it is just telling us that the buyers have failed on all time frames, and the seller have taken advantage and driven the auction in their favor. So what did we do in Nifty spot last week? So the week prior to last week, Nifty had formed a normal variation. We opened with this gap up and held the rollover point. But then we could not do much on the upside, and we formed a balanced profile, and we closed around the value area low. We had discussed this in the last Monday session also. So what we did on the first day of this month was we opened in value, got about this POC, almost tagged this value area high, but we are not able to get above the value area. And here we saw how we left that small rejection where at this anchored at the series VWAP of July 25142. So from there we started a down move. In fact, this was a failed auction on the weekly time frame. 25021. Sorry, this is 25021. The 25141 was in the week prior to this when we got this gap up 18th to 22nd of August. Last week we made a high of 25021 on Monday, and we got this small rejection in the K period. So this was telling us that the previous week's value area high was stalling. And the next day when we got this initiated selling tail, a weekly failed auction got confirmed at 25021. And we went on to promptly hit the 180R target of 24536, which is also an extension handle on the daily time frame. So Bank Nifty, after it confirmed an FA on the weekly, it made new lows on all 4 days. We had a day off last week because of Ganesh Chaturthi. But what we did was, you can see how after the rejection on first day, this we left an initiative selling tail. We again left an selling tail on the next day, and then we got a failed range extension, which was telling us we have got a failed auction again. 24590 was this POC, and 24572 was the high we made on Friday, and we went on to probe lower. So this was a failed auction, and we got a neutral extreme close. A neutral extreme is not known to give follow-ups, and that is the reason we were little skeptical to carry shots on Friday. Why? Because not just the daily, but the weekly and the monthly, all of them were closing as a neutral extreme. So we had to watch what kind of volume, what kind of open the September month gives for us to uh, get into a fresh bias. So, what were the levels which we carried forward for this week? You can see how we had formed an elongated profile. On the weekly time frame, we have a failed auction at top, and we have left an extension handle. The first extension handle was at 24894, which was a failed auction of last Monday, which got negated. And as the failed auction got negated, it promptly went on to do the uh, ATR objective on the downside. So I'll come to what has happened today. We have had a similar setup today. So we will discuss about that when I come to today's chart. And what we have got that first extension handle at 24894, and then we have a zone of singles till 24838. And then we have the second extension handle at 24741, and the third one at 24689. So we have three extension handles in the weekly profile, which will serve as supply points on the upside. So we will have to see how the auction shapes up, how the Nifty spot shapes at those levels. So these were the hypos for today. We were bearish only below this previous close. So we never got below this today. So we did not have a bearish view today at all. As per the upside hypos, we got about 24444. We tagged this 24488, and then we got above the POC. We made a small stall over here, which was a pause, and then we took off this, and today's high is right here, 24635. So you can see how these hypos help. This is to the dot, and this is why market profile gives us such specific levels to work out of. So it was very clear at the open that we are not at all bearish today. So let us just open up today's chart and see what we have as references for the weekly settlement tomorrow and also for the week ahead. So this is today's Nifty spot chart, and you can see how we opened below previous week's value. We left an initiative buying tail and we got back. We got back in this value. We did make a seaside dip. You can see how the seaside held this halfback of A. We have discussed this many times in spot, how we give importance to the AP rate singles and halfback of TPOs which have not been tagged. And then you can see how this F stalled right at this halfback of C. So this was telling us that the auction is not wanting to go below previous week's value. And then that told us that the PLR is to the upside. And that is the reason we went on to make this range extension. And we have gone on to go near the rollover point of 24650. So that will be our reference. We will need to get about 24650. If I switch this to the daily, we will have those levels marked in the daily, which will help us to identify what are the So this is our daily chart, and I'm just splitting open, and you can see how the hypos which were given. This was our bullish hypo. We were above the bullish hypo throughout. We never went below this bearish hypo, and then we took out this. We did a small pause over here at the POC. We took support, and then we went on to take this VPOC off. We have negated this failed auction of 24792, and we have tagged this 24635 reference. We are very close to the rollover point. So this will be the immediate reference for tomorrow's open. If we get above this rollover point, then we are looking for more upside. This 24677 selling tail from 28 would be our first objective. Above that, we can look for more up move in Nifty spot. On the downside, our immediate, we have a very basic rule for failed auctions. So we are bearish above the failed auction, and we are we are bearish below the failed auction, and we are bullish above the failed auction. So I'll just quickly take you back to the failed auction we left last week on Monday and compare it with what has happened today. So this 25th of August was last Monday's auction, where we had this failed auction in the seaside extension at 24894. But we also saw this rejection in the K period. It has the tail end. It was mainly came in this 20-second initiative selling tail. So when this failed auction got negated on Tuesday, you can see how the PLR changed to the downside. And this negation of the failed auction 24894 gave us the 280R objectives to the downside, which was 24712 and 24530. So a similar thing has happened today. What have we done today is we had closed Friday with a failed auction. So where was the failed auction on Friday? This was a failed auction. And from this failed auction, the 180R move to the downside was coming at 24527. But we stalled. Sorry. The 180R was coming to 24390. So, but we stalled just above it. 24404 was the low which we made on Friday. So you can see how we almost, you can say we almost completed the 180R objective, but today we have negated this. And after negating, we have left an important HTPO halfback right there. So as long as we are above this 247,572 failed auction, we can look for upside ATR targets, which is at 24755 and 24937. So those would be our upside targets in Nifty spot. So this 24572 is our immediate support for this week and also for tomorrow's settlement. But we will have to get above this rollover point. Then we are looking for 24717 and 24767. These would be our upside objectives. Over that, then we have this VPOC and this level of 24808, which is the value area high of 26th. So this is what is the scenario set up for tomorrow. If we break below this 24572, then we are no longer bullish, and then we will look for a test of today's buying tail. And if we break that, then we're looking for more downside in the coming sessions. So this is how we are placed in Nifty. Let's now move on to the futures. And see what was the open type we had. We have the Nifty futures profile chart on the left and the 30-minute order flow on the right. And I'll just come up with the so what we have done today is we have rejected this neutral extreme close of Friday. the close was in the neutral extreme zone, we have made a open option in range chart, but you can see how the close was rejected. How can we say that even in the order flow you can see zeros at the lows? And neutral extreme, the VWAP is an important reference. So you can see how we have got back above VWAP, and the seaside dip which we made was right at the neutral extreme VWAP of Friday. So that is telling us, and in this dip you can see we've got zeros on the sell side. So the VWAP, neutral extreme VWAP, which had to hold for us to look for more downside, for us to confirm that the sellers were still holding the auction. But it not only was taken out in the AP rate, but in the test, in the dip lower in the C side, it showed no supply at all. So it was very clear with this behavior that the PLR is to the upside, because the neutral extreme VWAP was taken out and then it was showing us change of polarity. And that is the reason, although we had a small balance in the first half, the G period, as it is always known to do, gave us that extension handle. And we started this up move later in the day, which continued into the close. So we did make marginal range extensions in the E, but it was the G which set up, and this extension handle is holding, and we went on to form a double distribution trend up profile. So you can see how we have gone on to test this supply zone of 24757, which will be the reference for tomorrow, and we've got a so this is where the auction saw big volumes. So 24757 would be the level to watch tomorrow. If we are above it, then we are looking for upside. And today, because it's a double distribution day, this VWAP would be an important reference, which is around 24700 level. So 24710 in futures was a failed auction. So same thing as we saw in the spot, the failed auction is now negated and we are above this. So we can look for the upside 180R target, which comes to 24893. So which is what could be our target tomorrow if we stay above this failed auction and we negotiate this supply at 24757. So that is how the order flow in Nifty futures is looking at. Let's have a quick look at the Bank Nifty profile before we look at what are the option tools which we can use for tomorrow's settlement, and how do we track them? How do we track the option inventory? So we have the Bank Nifty futures profile chart on left. I'll just split this profile and put up the in fact, in both Bank Nifty and Nifty, we have had overlapping value in the last three sessions, with the POC also being in sync. So same thing you can see in Bank Nifty, the POC is almost around the same zone of the last 3 days, and we have formed an inside bar today. We again, this neutral extreme move was rejected. This was a neutral extreme profile to the downside. It was not a failed auction because we stayed for more than 30 minutes above the initial balance high on Friday. But nonetheless, it was a neutral extreme profile, which gave a big trending move lower. But it was more to do with the close of the month, which was a neutral extreme setup. So on the daily, we opened higher, but there was not much upside. Initial balance did not see any up move, any range extension, and we were stalling at this POC of Friday. And then what we did was, because there was no demand, the auction went lower. We made a very marginal new low in the F period. But then again, we did not see any supply over there, and it got immediately rejected. And into the close, we went on to confirm the failed auction, but then it is a very minute case because we didn't have a big close above the IBH also. So we will have to wait for the volumes to show up. You can see how the volumes began to come down drastically after the A period. So volumes were very low. In fact, it went to 581. This IS came on the lowest volumes of the day. So that is the reason, even though it has given you the uh, first target of the IS, the volumes are telling you that this is not a good enough signal to take action on, because the volumes are simply not there. And that is the reason you can see how immediately the new lows got rejected. We got zero on the sell side and we immediately went on to probe higher, confirming a failed auction at these lows. So this failed auction would be one important reference going forward. And for the failed auction to remain in play, this is the failed auction. For the failed auction to remain in play, we will need to stay above the initial balance high, which is at 54367. So if we remain above that 54367, then we can look for more upside in Bank Nifty in the coming week. We can maybe look for a test of these anchored VWAPs, 54,700 and 54,800. So that is how we are placed in the Bank Nifty futures. We will have these references and levels marked in the reports which we publish. For the spot, it is the weekly report where we publish the daily hypos, and for futures, we will have a daily report which has the business areas. So what we have done into the close, we did make new highs, but it is not a convincing close for the buyers, because we have seen this being an RS bar. So it needs to stay above this 54367 level and hold for us to move to this 54700 and 54800. So let's now move on to the option world, option universe, and see how do we track them. We have already had multiple webinars on that, and we have discussed how we can use the two window mode to look at what the option inventory is doing. So let me just have a combination of the two window modes. The first two window mode which I am speaking about today, the first half, the left side, is the spectrum chart. I'll just make this spectrum to a 3-minute one so that we can see what has happened today. So you can see when we started, the spectrum range was 24,400, 24,500 and 24,600. So this was the spectrum at the start of the day today. Accordingly, we will need to figure out how the gamma zero is and if it is moving during the day. And the right side is our volume X, Nifty volume X chart, the all important tool which tells us when we can look to get into long option trades. So today the higher open showed us the call volume being slightly higher than the put, but then they interlinked, but then again the call got above it. And again, just before the G period, they had a crossover and a crossback. So this is where the call volume swiped, and this is around the G period. So this is where you will need to check out that when you're getting, this is the first swipe you can see in the call volumes of the day. And immediately what you need to do, you need to see what is happening in the inventory part. You can see how the put inventory is starting to go up, the call inventory is starting to come down. So spectrum is giving us the confirmation that definitely this swipe is not a small time one. It is having repercussions because you are seeing the put OI going up and the call OI dropping. So what do you need to do? You need to open up a call option order flow chart and look for IB signals or green bars at VWAP to get into long side trades. Or alternatively, you go at put order flow chart and look to short them. So you can see how this swipe was again followed by another swipe here. So from here, the call volume X remained to the upside. It never came back lower, and the distance kept on increasing. Although the put volumes didn't fall, the call volumes kept increasing, and you can see how the call OI kept dropping. So in one window, the spectrum and the volume X is showing you confirmation that yes, you have a imbalance on. And the spectrum also, what it did later in the day, from 24,500 it shifted to 24,600. So this was further confirmation that the buyers are now holding. So this is what we need to look out. This is one very important combination, the spectrum and the volume X. And just like how I showed you, you can see whenever you are getting a volume swipe and when the open interest is showing you change. Although the open interest is a delayed one, the volume X would be the first one to give you a signal. So immediately you can act upon this signal, and then this will give you a confirmation later that yes, the signal which came in the volume X is good one, and you are getting to see the result in the spectrum also. So this is one combination which you can use. Let us now move on to another combination. Again, a two window mode where we have the much talked about gamma density and gamma exposure chart. This has been added very recently. So what this helps us to do is helps us to know when we can expect the auction to be in a range and when we can expect the auction to give a move. So you can see how in the first part of the day, this convexity, the density on the left is the gamma density chart, how this convexity and the density both were pointing at 24,500. So this was telling us that this is a short gamma market, because here also in the gamma exposure chart on the right side, it is very clearly showing 24,500 is short gamma. So this is where you can look at going short in the 24,500 saddle. And what would be the references in them? It would be the VWAP and the POC of the day, and you can look to hold them as long as this information does not change. And when this changes, then you can accordingly look to alter your position or take a fresh trade to trade the imbalance which is coming in. So it was the G period where we started that move, and you can see how this green long gamma is slightly increasing, and this has shifted from 24,500 to 24,600. So this will keep you in sync, and this will tell you. So again here, this you can see this is again shifted to 24,600. So this is what will keep you in sync and tell you where you need to be short gamma and where you can expect some more move in the imbalance which is coming in. So now what is the closing? You can see short gamma is now shifted, 24,600 is now short gamma, and here we have shifted the upper spectrum range to 24,700. So that is where we will be having our focus on tomorrow in tomorrow's settlement, and we will need to see where these cones are pointed to tomorrow. Tomorrow is a settlement day, so it is important you have this particular combination open and keep checking what is happening here, because if there is any change here, it will definitely show up on the trade setups. So you will be able to take a good trade using this. So we also have an article of how to use the gamma density and the gamma exposure chart. It is there in the must read section of the website. So you can definitely go and have a check on that and make use of this tool in the best way possible. So now let's move on to yet another combo, and this is what I have also discussed last week. So we have the volume X on the right, and we have the call option order flow line chart on the left. So just like what we were doing in the spectrum and the line chart, what we need to see is this: identify a swipe in the call. This is the swipe which is come in the G. So you see if you are getting any IBs in the G. So here you can see how you've got a good green bar above VWAP and the POC. It is climbing higher. So this is still not an IB signal, but yes, you're getting this confirmation that the volume is swiping, the C call volume is swiping. So with this green bar as your reference, you can look to get into a trade. More so because we have also extended above the initial balance high. And then the next swipe came in around around the 1 p.m. time. And here you can see you've got this IB3 signal. So this is a signal which you can take a trade. The IB3 low never broke even into the close, and it went on to make these new highs. So this is a perfect combination of how you can use this wonderful two window mode and put up instruments which you want to trade. So VolumeX is telling you when you can look to trade long options, and the order flow is showing you where exactly you can go long and where you need to put your stop loss, and accordingly you get your probable targets. So this is what you need to do. Option inventory is too vast a world, but we have some of the best tools in place at VTrender charts, so we can make use of them and try to be one step ahead of what the rest of the market is doing. So all these features are available. We have articles written on all the features. All of them are there in the must read section. We also have videos on YouTube channel, so you can go through them in case you need to know more about this. And plus, if you have any queries, you can post your questions over here, or you can DM me on X. My ID is at Uttam Goel. You can also mail us at support@vtrender.com, because we are working to get all of us on the same platform to make use of these wonderful tools and to keep changing with markets, to keep getting better and better as the market evolves. So we have the gamma density and the exposure tool added very recently. So make sure you are able to make sense of it. And tomorrow when we have the settlement, the first weekly settlement of Tuesday, we can have that chart as a handy tool to know when the range can expand, when the range is the auction is in a pause mode, and what are the levels which we need to look out for. So thank you guys for joining in. That is it for today from my side. Let's look to have a great weekly settlement tomorrow, and more of these Tuesday's expiry, and we can definitely make sense of them if we track the tools which we have and accordingly look to trade. We don't blindly go short saddles just because everyone else is doing it. We need to check out whether it's a short gamma market or a long gamma market. If it is a short gamma market, we look to short saddles. Else, we look to go long in options and accordingly run the move. So signing off for today, guys, and let's get back on Thursday with yet another session like this. And as I mentioned, if there are any queries, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you, guys, and have a great evening.